At a recent conference, I met a woman whose eyes were filled with tears of gratitude as she shared her poignant story. For years, she had battled an addiction that seemed insurmountable, a dark cloud hanging over her life. She felt trapped, hopeless, and utterly alone. Then, a friend introduced her to the power of intercessory prayer. A small group began praying for her deliverance, believing that God could break the chains that held her captive. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, she began to experience a glimmer of hope. The cravings lessened, her resolve strengthened, and she found the strength to seek help. Today, she stands as a testament to the transformative power of intercessory prayer, a living example of God's ability to set us free from even the darkest prisons. Her story, like countless others, reminds us that we are engaged in a spiritual battle, a constant struggle against unseen forces that seek to keep us from experiencing the fullness of God's love and purpose for our lives. But we are not alone in this fight. We have a powerful weapon at our disposal: intercessory prayer. Take the first step towards breaking free from darkness. Join us in the journey of spiritual freedom. Start your intercessory prayer today. The scriptures are replete with examples of intercessory prayer, men and women who dared to stand in the gap and plead for the well-being of others. Moses, a man who knew the heart of God, interceded for the Israelites time and again, begging God's mercy and forgiveness on their behalf. Abraham, the father of our faith, bargained with God for the salvation of Sodom and Gomorrah, demonstrating the audacity of a faith that dares to ask for the impossible. These biblical giants understood a profound truth: that prayer is not merely a personal plea for our own needs, but a powerful weapon that can shift circumstances and change destinies. They knew that when we pray for others, we tap into the very heart of God, who is moved by compassion and eager to extend His grace and mercy. Intercessory prayer is not a passive activity, but an active engagement in the spiritual realm, a declaration that we believe in a God who hears our cries and responds with love and power. It is a recognition that we are not isolated individuals but part of a larger body, interconnected and responsible for one another's well-being. Spiritual captivity is a subtle but powerful force that can ensnare even the most devout believer. It is the state of being held back from experiencing the fullness of God's plan for our lives, bound by unseen chains of fear, doubt, addiction, or any other stronghold that prevents us from living in true freedom. This captivity manifests in various ways: broken relationships, unfulfilled potential, persistent sin patterns, and a pervasive sense of hopelessness. The enemy of our souls, cunning and deceptive, seeks to keep us bound by these chains, whispering lies that we are not worthy, not capable, not deserving of God's love and forgiveness. He wants us to believe that our past mistakes define us, that our struggles are too great to overcome, and that we are ultimately powerless to change. Recognizing the symptoms of spiritual captivity is crucial to breaking free. We must be willing to take an honest inventory of our lives, acknowledging areas where we feel stuck, defeated, or unable to move forward. This requires humility, courage, and a willingness to confront the lies that have taken root in our hearts. The path to spiritual captivity often begins with seemingly small compromises, subtle temptations that whisper promises of pleasure, escape, or fulfillment. We may think we can handle it, that one wrong choice won't matter. But sin, like a seductive serpent, coils itself around our hearts, squeezing tighter with each act of disobedience. We must be vigilant, recognizing that temptation often disguises itself as something harmless, even desirable. It might be the allure of instant gratification, the intoxicating draw of unhealthy relationships, or the bitter root of unforgiveness that poisons our hearts. Remember, the enemy knows our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities, and he tailors his attacks accordingly. He preys on our insecurities, exploiting our past hurts and unmet needs, but we are not defenseless. We have the armor of God at our disposal, the truth of His Word to combat the lies, and the power of His Spirit to resist temptation. Sometimes the most insidious form of spiritual captivity is the one we don't even recognize. Just as hostages in a prolonged kidnapping situation may develop empathy for their captors, we can become so accustomed to our spiritual chains that we cease to struggle against them. This is the danger of spiritual Stockholm Syndrome. We begin to make excuses for our sin, rationalize our behavior, and even defend the very things that hold us captive. We grow comfortable in our dysfunction, accepting defeat as an inevitable part of life. This is a dangerous deception, a subtle form of spiritual manipulation that keeps us bound in a prison of our own making. Breaking free from this type of captivity requires a radical shift in perspective, a willingness to acknowledge the truth of our situation, however uncomfortable it may be. We must be willing to call sin by its name, to stop making excuses and to embrace the truth that God desires our freedom more than we do. Intercessory prayer is the key that unlocks the shackles of spiritual captivity. It is the lifeline we throw to those drowning in sin, the battering ram that breaks down strongholds, and the light that pierces the darkness. When we pray for others, we align ourselves with God's will, partnering with Him in the miraculous work of redemption and restoration. Don't underestimate the power of your prayers. Every heartfelt plea, every tear shed in intercession, releases spiritual power that can break chains, heal brokenness, and set captives free. Remember, we are engaged in a spiritual battle, and prayer is our most powerful weapon. Never underestimate the power of agreement in prayer. When 2 or 3 gather in Jesus' name and lift their voices in unison, there is a supernatural synergy that is released, a force that can move mountains and overcome any obstacle. Seek out prayer partners, join a prayer group, and make it a priority to intercede for those who are struggling. This is a call to action, dear friends. Do not sit idly by while those around you languish in spiritual captivity. Embrace the power of intercessory prayer and become a warrior in the spiritual realm. Pray for your family, your friends, your neighbors, and even your enemies. Pray for those caught in the grip of addiction, bound by fear, or blinded by deception. Your prayers matter. They have the power to change lives, to shift destinies, and to usher in God's kingdom here on earth. Don't underestimate the impact you can have when you choose to stand in the gap and intercede on behalf of others. Remember, prayer is not a last resort. It is our first line of defense. It is the oxygen that fuels our spiritual lives, the foundation upon which we build our faith. Make prayer a non-negotiable part of your daily routine, a habit woven into the very fabric of your being. The journey to spiritual freedom may be challenging, but it is a journey worth taking. It is a process of surrendering our will to God's, of allowing Him to break down the walls we have built around our hearts, and of embracing the truth that we are loved, forgiven, and empowered to live victoriously. Through the power of intercessory prayer, we can not only experience personal liberation, but also become agents of freedom for others. Let us rise up as children of the Most High God and engage in this spiritual battle with courage, compassion, and unwavering faith. The victory has already been won, and the power of prayer is ours to wield.